Guys, are we recording? Yes. All right, because the audio was on. All right. It is on. Okay, thank you. I'll ask the city clerk to please take the roll call.
Councilmember James.
Here.
Councilmember Ross.
Here.
Councilmember Holloway.
Here.
Councilmember Mayhew.
Here.
Councilmember Lassay.
Here.
Councilmember Sundwall.
Here.
Councilmember Shepherd by phone.
Here.
Mayor Larson.
I am here. Council, may I have a motion and a second to approve the agenda as presented tonight?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the agenda. Is there any discussion? Councilmember Mayhew?
Request that Agenda Bill 19-099 be taken off the consent agenda.
099, Executive Recruitment Services, okay. And that'll be moved down under F&A. Any other discussion, Council?
And I have something.
Go ahead, Councilmember Shepherd.
I wanted to add to the council of the whole a discussion about the waste management contract.
Can council member state that as a motion, please?
Yes, I'd like to move to add to the discussion under committee of the whole, a discussion about the waste management contract being expired.
Okay, Councilmember Shepherd, I'm sorry that dies for lack of a second. Are there any other items for discussion, Council? Any amendments, additions to the agenda? All right, seeing no further discussion with the one amendment that was made, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay?
Motion is carried.
Point of order?
Councilmember Mayhew.
I wonder if, to assist us with having one of the council members on the phone, if perhaps the mayor could round robin during discussions and so forth, call on the council member that's on the phone so that she's not having to guess when to pipe up in order to get her turn to speak. I think it might make the meeting go more smoothly if she were called on in turn each time.
Okay, I'll make an effort to do that. And Councilmember Shepherd, perhaps you could just say one word like "here," and I'll note that as a signal, as a hand raised, that you'd like an opportunity to speak. Can you tuck that microphone a
Okay.
little closer, though, too, Jody? All right. All right, with that, we're going to move on to public hearings, presentations, proclamations, and appointments. At this time, we're going to, it's not a public hearing, but we're going to allow some public comment, an opportunity for public comment regarding the proposed non-utility capital improvement plan. Did anybody sign up, Jody? No. Okay, there were no sign-ups, but at this time, is there anybody that did not sign up that wanted an opportunity to speak to the non-utility capital improvement plan? Okay, seeing no one will move forward, we will move on to citizens' comments. At this time, we'll provide time for citizens to comment on items not on the agenda. First, a few ground rules. First, the Snoqualmie citizens who are not present here have a right to have their elected representatives perform their duties on behalf of the city in an efficient and orderly manner. Therefore, the comments of those who are present will be limited to 3 minutes each. Second, please wait to be recognized. Come to the podium and state your name and address for the record. Third, direct your comments to the council as a whole and not to individual members. In order to protect the privacy rights of employees and protect members of the public from legal liability, please note that this is not the appropriate venue to make complaints or accusations about an implied or named city employer or employee, or agent. Such an oral comments will not be allowed but can be submitted in writing to the city clerk. Fourth, please note that this is not a time to ask questions of the council, mayor, or staff, or to engage in debate. The council will simply and quietly, respectfully listen to your concerns. Fifth, respect the decorum of these proceedings, as all due respect will be afforded to you. And last, this is an election season, and in compliance with election laws, please refrain from any political campaigning in violation of RCW 42.17A.555. With all that, is there anybody from the public that would like to give any public comment? Oh, I'm sorry. Rebecca Bastian, we'll start with you.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Bastian. I live on Maple and Maple, the end of Mayor Row. Council, good evening, Mayor. I was concerned, have been quite concerned lately. It doesn't matter whether we're in this building, outside, working, we're all working hard to live in this beautiful city of ours. And it has been coming to my attention, I observe a lot that disparaging comments have really got to stop. I mean, we got young kids involved in politics, and our elected officials are who the people elected. We're supposed to be leaders of our community. I like to be looked at when I'm spoken to, and nobody shows any respect anymore. I don't understand, but the disparaging comments, if you can't stand up and speak the truth without hurting somebody, if you can't speak the truth, don't say anything at all. But don't silence us, just like you said earlier. And I applaud the free thinkers. We're not all, I'm responsible for everything I say and do, but it's becoming more and more. Nobody's smiling. It's almost like a veil of a Machiavellianism government. And I don't know why we can't see through that veil of deception. We can't be transparent. We've asked for things. Bob wants to know what the people want. We want transparency. We want to know about those records about sister cities that haven't been opened. We want to know where our financials are. And I love the camaraderie, but this city business is serious, affects every single one of us. And disparaging, putting people down, affects every single one of us in this city, North Bend, South Bend, Lake Sammamish, everywhere. We have to come and stand united, and free thinkers, and stand up for what's right and true and not be deceptive or deceive people. We can't go on 14 years like this. Something's got to change, and the time for it changes now, people. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you, Becky. David McCall.
He had to leave.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Wayne Russell.
Wayne Russell, 8438 Meadowbrook Way, Southeast. I wasn't going to come at first tonight, but then I'm sitting there and I was thinking my wife would be mad at me if I didn't, because I drove past the high school and I'm looking and I see all these corrugated pipes and about 4 feet of gravel getting dumped on top of them, which I really don't understand. I know we changed the LOMRs back in 2010 and it's in floodplain now instead of floodway. But that gravel is going to back up water. I wish some of you would have been here during the 1990 flood when the 76 station was on the corner and the doors were open with water flowing through it. So I have a great concern about all that gravel that's going in there and raising things the way we are. And as flow-through goes, now that you can see the back of the new high school, it doesn't look very flow-through to me. I might be wrong, but it looks awful closed off. And then another thing is that I've heard recently from different residents around the mill site that they've heard trucks going in and out of there at night. Now, I haven't got any proof of that, but if there's anybody that's open to it, I sure hope that they start watching, because as most of you know, the last 2 years we had to turn in the people for the Boeing Classic. And there was one other thing now. I had to go up to Fisher. It's really funny. I go to Ridge occasionally for my daughter's soccer games, and I had to go over to Fisher. I bought some DVDs from a fellow that listed them. I just happened to see him on Facebook, and he said, wow, 120 DVDs for $20. So I went over there, and I went over to Fisher and went to the left side where the park is, and I didn't realize there was that many houses down there. And I'll tell you what, when I came out and turned to the right on a Sunday afternoon, I don't envy any of the people that live on either side of that street. That hawk light is great for pedestrians, but it's not going to be good for the people that have to merge in there during business hours. So anyhow, that's about all I have, and thank you. And one other thing I told the mayor was Lake Michigan is at its highest level ever. Our river might be low, but Lake Michigan, it hasn't even hit its record high yet for the summer. They don't even have beaches up in Door County. So the tourists don't really know what to do. They have to almost stand out on the road. Anyhow, thank you.
Thank you, Wayne. Welcome back. Is there anybody else who didn't have an opportunity to sign up that would like to speak? Colleen.
Colleen Johnson, 38110 Southeast Northern Street. I'd like to thank Public Works. I don't know how many of you are familiar with our little dog leg on Northern Street, but we have people that try and jump that in one try, and they cleaned it out so you can see what's coming at you, and I thank you very much.
Thank you, Colleen. Is there anybody else who'd like to speak? All right, seeing no one further, we'll move on to the consent agenda. All items listed below will be enacted by one motion. Action items include minutes for the July 22nd, 2019 regular council meeting and for the August 1st, 2019 regular council meeting. I'm sorry, one of those was not the regular one. August 1st was the special council meeting focused on the CIP. Approval of warrants is stated in the agenda packet. Other approvals include Agenda Bill 19089, purchase of one 2020 Ford Interceptor SUV four-wheel drive police package vehicle for the Snoqualmie Police Department. Agenda Bill 19090, purchase of one 2020 Ford Interceptor SUV four-wheel drive special service package vehicle for the Snoqualmie Fire Department. Agenda Bill 19091, Resolution 1502, determining the lowest responsive bidder, awarding a small works public works contract and authorizing execution of a small works contract with Cortez Fencing for the Northern to King Street Fence Improvement Project. Agenda Bill 19095, Resolution 1506, establishing a telecommuting policy. And Agenda Bill 19097, Resolution 1507, declaring that position descriptions for city employees below the director level and amendments thereto do not require city council approval. Do I have a motion, council?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda as stated. Is there any discussion, or is there any member of the public that would like to comment on any of these items prior to council discussion? Seeing no one move forward, any discussion, council? Councilmember Jeans?
095 is identified as a telecommuting policy, and the explanation of what it is shows that it is relevant to telecommuting, but in nowhere in the explanation does it say telecommuting. And I'm just wondering if someone can either retitle the title to this thing or just put the phrase telecommuting policy in parentheses in the explanation of what it's about. No objection to anything other than just the way of expressing the title. It ought to reference that in the body of the.
Deborah, since we're in the consent agenda, and so as not to maybe go to the point of pulling this off, did you hear Councilmember Jean's request?
I did, and we can do that.
Okay, I don't think it requires a motion. That's something we can just take care of internally. Does that satisfy you, Councilmember Jeans?
Yeah, that's fine.
All right. Any other questions?
Yes.
Councilmember Shepherd?
Yeah, I would like to make a correction to the minutes. I did bring up the issue about the expired waste management contract in the last council meeting, and there was some discussion about that going to the Public Works Committee. I'd like to see that reflected in the minutes.
Jody, did you get that? Okay. I do recur that there was a conversation, so if it wasn't captured in the minutes, Councilmember Shepherd will make sure and do that. Or we'll get that in there and assume that's what's in the approved minutes. Councilmember Sunwell?
So in terms of content, I couldn't care less about either one of these two things that have been mentioned. It's fine, whatever. But as a matter of practice, I'm concerned that we're taking something, we had an opportunity to take something off the consent agenda and we didn't. And we're amending something that has been approved. It's simple as a title. I'm just trying to make sure our hygiene is in whatever that sheet that Jim has that he's going to hit me with in a second. All that stuff to make sure that our hygiene around that is proper. And I would go with the minutes as well. The minutes have already been approved to my knowledge. So going back, were they not?
Well, they'll be approved
That's
as part of the
this.
consent agenda, yeah. All right. Any further discussion or any other issues, council? All right, with that, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
All right, moving on to ordinances. Finance Administration Committee, Agenda Bill 19096. Ordinance amending Snoqualmie Municipal Code, Section 2.04.010 relating to the office of the city clerk, amending Snoqualmie Municipal Code, Section 2.04.020 relating to the office of the finance director, providing for severability and establishing an effective date. This is only for introduction tonight, so if you could just read the summary statement.
Snoqualmie Municipal Code, SMC, Section 2.04.010 establishes the office of the city clerk and sets forth the duties of the city clerk. SMC Section 2.04.020 establishes the office of the finance director and sets forth the duties of the finance director. This is a housekeeping ordinance which clarifies the duties of the city clerk and finance director respectively, and to prevent any misrepresentation of those duties.
All right, thank you. As I stated, this is for action at the night, for introduction only tonight. However, at this time, is there any comments from the public prior to possible future action on this item? All right, seeing no one move forward. Counselor, is there any discussion, questions at this time prior to bringing this back next time? Councilor Say.
Could the chair summarize maybe what the purpose of the housekeeping ordinance is? Or discuss why we're even doing it? Or maybe another council member might.
I will yield to Mr. Mayhew. He seems anxious.
Mr. Mayhew, would you like to give that a shot? Go ahead.
This is, what's going to happen is, in 2 weeks, there'll be an agenda bill brought forward regarding position descriptions. In anticipation of that, they want to take the portion of the existing code where there's some level of position description out, and as well, there's actually some confusion in that, so it's a housekeeping to take the position description out of the code, and then in 2 weeks, before you actually have to vote on this, you'll be able to see where they're planning to put it in.
Okay.
Councilman Leslie, does that satisfy your question?
Sure, I'll ask the question when we get to that point.
I can see why Councilman, maybe he was jumping to, I mean, that was a
Yeah,
compelling
yeah, captivating.
explanation. I can see
Yeah.
why you wanted to do that.
It was an answer I could give in under 3 minutes, which is a record for me.
All right, any further discussion?
Position descriptions were approved in the consent agenda this evening.
Sorry, can you speak to the mic?
Tell them, not me.
The resolution regarding the
Jody, pull your
position,
microphone up, yeah.
the position descriptions resolution was approved on the consent agenda this evening.
Wrong.
So I think the only thing that you missed, Councilmember Mayhew, is that the 96 is connected to the position description item.
So with that, Councilman Leslie, do you have additional questions?
Well, it wasn't so much that we had already approved in the consent. It was more about, is this because of a state law? Are we doing this because there's a change in the RMC or something like that?
It's because when, in Bob's absence, we had Anne Marie Soto work on the position description item for us. And when she reviewed the code, she found this and said, if we're going to do that, then this should be cleaned up. It's just a housekeeping item.
Okay.
Okay?
We spent more time on it than we needed to.
Yeah.
All right, there's no further discussion. We'll move on to the reports. Parks and Public Works Committee, Agenda Bill 19094, Transportation Improvement Board, Complete Streets Grant Agreement Work Plan Amendment Number 2.
The City Council approved an agreement with the State Transportation Improvement Board for $250,000 Complete Streets Grant, Agenda Bill 17-029. A work plan with 3 projects was approved and subsequently amended by Amendment Number 1 in August of 2018 to include installation of sidewalks and pedestrian fencing. TIB Work Plan Amendment Number 2 proposes to continue funding the project listed in Amendment Number 1, dedicating remaining funds to sidewalk repair. The projects require 0% city match. TIB funds must be expended by December 31st, 2019. Individual projects are subject to future council approval of project bids. Move to approve the Transportation Improvement Board Complete Streets Grant Agreement Work Plan Amendment 2 and authorize the mayor to sign.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve Agenda Bill 19094 as stated by Councilmember Sunwell. Is there any member of the public that would like to speak to this item prior to council discussion? Seeing no one move forward. Council, any questions? Councilmember Sunwell.
So the reason we pulled this, we didn't put this on consent, other than the large amount, is because there's a really awesome story to tell, and I wanted Brian or whoever to just explain why we're getting a couple extra projects out of the same amount of money. So, including sidewalks.
Brian is the one that deserves the credit, but
That's why I asked
I'll
him.
give him the credit, so they'd be better for him to do that. As Councilmember Sunwell mentioned that we received a grant in 2016, we amended that grant application to reallocate the funds. Total grant amount was $250,000. The current amendment says we need to build sidewalks and fencing. We allocated $100,000 and $150,000. He did a great job of managing those projects. We got the bids for one less than 40,000, for the others less than 70,000. When you add them up, it's 110,000. There's $140,000 unspent. A normal government employee will basically say, I'm done with my job, we're done with the projects, let's go. While Brian grabs the phone call Transportation Improvement Board to say, can I spend this money on other projects in the city? And then after extensive discussions, and the TIB is in agreement with us that we have a sidewalk repair and replacement project. It's designed, ready to go to construction. We got the TIB's verbal approval. Now we're going to use the balance of that $250,000 to pay for the sidewalk repair and replacement, and we will expend entire $250,000, the grant money between now and the end of December. I'm just so proud of your employees here. You really have a very dedicated, hardworking employees, and this is one of the examples that they show there. So, thank you, Brian.
So Ben, just to clarify, there's $250,000 that will go primarily into sidewalks throughout the city.
No, 140,000.
140, sorry. That will go to, I know we have a way more than that to fix, but this is $140,000 of somebody else's money, which is the best kind.
Yes.
To address some of the many sidewalk trippers and stuff that we have, right? And that will all be done before the end of the year.
That's correct. Otherwise, we'll have to refund the money.
Thank you, Ben. All right, any further discussion on this one, council? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion is carried. Moving on, Agenda Bill 19092, Resolution 1503, determining the lowest responsive bidder, awarding a Small Works Public Works contract to and authorizing execution of a Small Works contract with Well West Construction Incorporated for the Sidewalks Improvements Project.
This project will construct approximately 900 linear feet of missing sidewalk along the south side of Meadowbrook Way to SR 202 and a sidewalk from the SR 202 bridge to complete the pedestrian facilities around the Tokel roundabout. Move to approve Resolution 1503, determining the lowest responsive bidder, awarding a Small Works Public Works contract to and authorizing execution of a Small Works contract and with Well West Construction for the Sidewalks Improvements Project.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve Agenda Bill 19092 as stated by Councilmember Sunwell. Is there any member of the public that would like to comment on this item prior to council discussion? Seeing no one raise their hand, Councilmember Sunwell.
So just a quick recap. I'm sure everyone read this in great detail, but another really awesome thing that we're doing here. So just to recap the two locations. So if you recall, before the roundabout, way back in the day, there was a sidewalk that went across the entire bridge and connected with Mill Pond or whatever that was called at the time. That disappeared. That last stretch disappeared, which made some anonymous runners have to trample through bark and stuff. It was really inconvenient. So this connecting that to the falls, really, because you couldn't connect to the falls safely on that side of the street on that, which is really awesome. And then the second part is from the Milk Barn intersection on the east, I guess, side, the opposite side of the high school, connecting that sidewalk all the way down. And so this project will pay for that. So two much needed improvements and upgrades to our sidewalks within the city.
Any questions or discussion, council? All right, seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
All right, motion is carried. Agenda Bill 19093 and change order number 1 with KLB Construction Incorporated for the Utility Infrastructure Improvement Project.
This change order is for additional work required to comply with state laws pertaining to shoring or because of unforeseen site conditions requiring more appropriate construction material. Move to approve change order number 1 with KLB Construction, Inc. for the Utilities Infrastructure Improvement Project and authorize the mayor to sign.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve Agenda Bill 19093 as stated by Councilmember Sunwell. Is there any member of the public that would like to comment on this item prior to action? All right, seeing no one move forward, council need questions or discussion? Councilmember Sunwell.
So again, this is a significant amount of money, and rather than me explain this one because it's a little more complex than that, If Ben, if you could kind of give a similar explanation as you gave in, I think it'll make sense, and the fact of the matter is we're still under budget on this project.
Thank you, Councilmember Sunwell. We have discussed this topic extensively at the Public Works Committee. This is a part of the project that it is in the city's approved utility CIP. There's, the project is called the infrastructure improvements. There's two phases, phase that we're currently working on, and the next phase is going to be on the other side of the freeway. Total budget was $8.5 million for both phases. The contract award for this one was $3 million. Change order is $200,000. With all the design, all the fees that we pay so far and where we are, we have plenty of money left to do the next phase of this project. In fact, next phase, we added up, assuming you approve the change order, contract amount plus change order, and subtract that from the $8.5 million, we'll have roughly about $5.2 million, and we're anticipating about $3.5 million for the next phase of the project. So it's tracking really nicely. It is not unusual to have a change order like this when you're doing the underground utilities, and you try your best to eliminate them, but unfortunately that happens.
Ben, can you explain a little bit more detail about why? Because I think still $202,000, even though we're still be in a budget, and maybe just talk about the safety concerns that were associated with this.
Right.
And
I had some pictures here that it was pretty much is that related to the shoring, that the water line that we're replacing it, it's an asbestos concrete pipe, it's an old pipe. When we put the new pipe, typically you assume to go at the shallower depth, but when you go to shallower depth, you encounter that the other utilities that you're conflicting with, either storm drainage lines crossing the roadway. So we went deeper, and when you go deeper, then you will have shoring situation. And this chunk of this project, I'll just pass these pictures around to council members.
I've seen them. So you can,
Big chunk of this change order is related to the shoring expenses. And there's also a little bit confusion on the federal requirements and the Washington state requirements on the WISHA. That one requires that you have to do shoring at 4.5 feet and greater, and then the other one 4 feet and 5 feet, so there was some confusion on that one. We learned some lessons out of this thing, so the next phase that we're going to make sure that we do include the shoring, and we will assume that one, so it will be completely part of our overall project cost.
well, another thing worth noting that you mentioned last week is, and I can't remember the term you used, but we don't have a really good underground mapping.
As-built.
As-built mapping of where everything is, and so you can bid a project thinking that you can go shallow, and you open up the ground, it's like that wasn't on the map.
Right.
And so you've got to go deeper. And so I think that's just something, that an intrinsic problem that we have when you have a city that is old and wasn't mapped as well. And so I guess I say that because I wouldn't be surprised in future projects like this, that something like this would come up.
Thank you for that comment. And it's when we have a city like this, is rich in history. And
that's another way to say old. Thank you. I'll remember that when I'm just rich in history, son.
Lots of character.
It is very difficult to find the as-builts that are truly as-builts. Even if you do find them, the roadway profile has changed over the years, and you can't really depend on that one. It's a similar problem that the most rich cities, historically rich cities, experience that.
Councilmember Shepherd.
Okay, so I think, a $200,000 change in a contract this size is within reason or margins or whatever, but I am curious, what was the next higher bidder for this project to begin with? Was it more than $200,000 more than what this contractor had bid?
Councilmember Shepherd, the engineer's estimate for this project was originally $3.7 million. Low bidder was $3,040,000. Next lowest was $3.3 million.
Okay, so I'm happy.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay.
Never mind.
Ben, or one question maybe of Rami even, who's been around. He's got a lot of rich history. And Fuzzy remembers this because years back, the city didn't have resources to really even assess the nature of the infrastructure. And we were sending cameras down sewer drains and water lines and all that, just to even see the condition of pipes and then get all that inventory catalog. I mean, it seems to me with a camera, you could even determine yeah, please, Romy. It seems to me with a camera, you could, as part of that inventory, we could determine some depths of those systems too, or is that not as easy to?
Yes, as Ben stated, the worst thing to have is as-builts that are unreliable. It's worse than not having as-builts at all.
Worse, I'm sorry, worse, as-built that are what?
Unreliable.
Oh, okay.
They show the utilities at location and depth, but they are actually not there. We actually came across this on this project where we had to pay extra from force account. We had the water line alignment on Schusman Avenue, one valve at A, the other one valve at B location. You assume that the water line is going straight. It was actually in a great curve. So we don't know what the reason for that was. Maybe when they were building it in 1950s, they were trying to avoid something on the way, or they just had too much to drink, I don't know. But it wasn't going straight. It was a great curve. So when we painted the location of water main where we thought it would be, they actually hit the water line. They didn't break it, but they had to go deeper and then shore the water line up further.
Right.
Yes, we do have as-builts. We require as-builts both on paper and electronic form where you can export them to GIS so that the city's IT system has all the as-builts on new projects. But these projects are from 1950s, 60s, sometimes older and newer.
All right, thank you, Rami.
Thank you.
All right, if there's nothing further, Councilor Mayhew?
So this has been very helpful explanation. I'll just point out that in your council agenda staff report, the words that are written here say, this is a bid item for shoring for the water main was overlooked during design and not included in the project bid documents. That's a very different wording than we've just been hearing from staff and from our contractor. So I get a little confused. I think it's really important for you guys to put the effort into these staff reports, because I'll tell you, when I read that, I was very concerned. And I had questions around how did we overlook it, but that's not at all what I just heard. It wasn't a question of overlooking. It was a question of we went in to do the project and did not find what we expected to find.
And they're not incompatible two statements that we're stating here, but we could do a better job of expanding it as we expanded in the Public Works Committee discussion, Councilmember Mayhew. Yes, the depth was not identified or overlooked. Shoring was overlooked partly because we weren't expecting to do this extensive shoring there. And then we got into the project that we discovered that we're doing the most shoring on this one.
All right, so that's helpful. I think the thing I am just having a little trouble in hearing is, and I'm reading a lot into it, and I understand that you may not mean this, but when I hear, well, this is going to happen again, and we need to expect this, and so on, my answer is, okay, fine. But should we not then, if we're expecting that, or we need to expect it, or some variation on those words, should we not be building contingencies into these project plans and increasing the amount of contingency if these are things that reasonably might happen? So what I'm worried about is getting into a situation where you're not under budget by $200,000. I mean, I read the detail. In this case, you're actually able to cover a significant chunk of this by some savings elsewhere in the project. But not every project will go like that. Some projects, if you're going to have an overrun, you're simply going to have an overrun. And so from a budgeting perspective, I'm just concerned that we don't end up in a situation where we have a budget problem and we now have a project and we don't know how the heck to pay for the overrun we're hitting that we have to solve for. So I would just tell you I'm left with that concern. I don't have any problem approving this agenda bill, but I am left with that concern a little bit, that maybe we need to rethink our budgeting just a little bit. If these might happen again, let's just get that thinking into our budgeting process so we don't get caught flat-footed.
Great comments. Consultant and staff is already a step ahead of us. They took that into consideration in next phase design. We're going to assume that we're going to go deeper with the water line, and we're going to have the shoring. We're going to have that bit as part of our contracts.
If you come in under budget, we'll find some more sidewalks for you to fix, don't worry.
Councilmember Ross.
Brian, you're such a party pooper.
So did you already use your contingency fund?
I don't know the budget line here, but what I do have is that your CIP fund, that has $8.5 million for both phases of this infrastructure improvements. Current phase is about $3,041,000 bid amount. And then we have $200,000 change order right now. That makes it $3.2 million. The next phase, what I'm told that the engineers estimate is right now is about $3.5 million. So we do have a plenty delta between what the bond monies were allocated for this project and what we're anticipating to complete the both phases of the project. Now, in terms of the Councilmember Mayhew's specific question, what dollar figure was budgeted in 2019? I don't have that number in front of me to answer that question.
Right, but usually when you quote, or you're budgeting for it, you actually have a contingency fund, right? Which is, what, 5% of the project or something like that? I'm just curious if you're able to take it out of that.
I don't think we have, because when you approve this, the bond money, it's combined in one project, so we don't need to get a separate authorization or appropriations from council to go ahead get for contingency funds. Am I making any sense, Councilmember Ross?
You are, so you're thinking, maybe you went above it? Is that why you're here with the
Right.
work order then? Okay.
Well, no, the change orders by the city council's policy of the authority that you gave to the administration is limited. Typically, construction change orders are already administrative matters. Reason they are administrative matters, you can't hold contractor with all that equipment, all that labor on the job site to wait for the next council meeting to get an approval. The way we're doing this is we're implementing what needs to be done and coming back to the council asking for the approval. Normally, these are done administratively in most places, and then the information is presented to council after.
Councilmember Holloway and then Councilmember Sunwell.
Thanks.
I'm good. He caught it at the end.
All right, Councilmember Sunwell.
So I'm going to go a little bit opposite of what Councilmember Mayhew has said. I would say, and if I'm wrong, correct me, we consistently come hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not sometimes millions of dollars, under budget.
Correct.
And what I think that is an invitation to do potentially, and I don't think this is at odds with what Councilmember Mayhew is saying, but I think it's another look at the same thing, is there a way to tidy up those bids so that I like coming in under budget, but not by like hundreds and hundreds of thousands, right? Because what that does is it throws off down the road as you start projecting 1 to 5 years down the road of the things you can do.
Right.
And by the time you've realized that savings, you've lost time to be able to mobilize something, a project that might come, that you might have been able to do that now has to wait 2 or 3 years because you don't have capacity or whatever it is. So just something to think about.
Sure.
Councilmember Mayhew.
So I don't want to get too far off topic, so I'll just bring this up and ask that maybe you take it up with Parks and Public Works Committee a little bit. You said something that just alarmed me a little, because you suggested that potentially you're approving contractors to actually do these change orders or to proceed with work prior to actually getting the council to, and then you double back, or I can't remember your exact words, but there's an implication that somehow we actually are giving the green light to contractors and then going back to get the change order approved by council. And if
There's
I want to
no-
make sure that if there's a problem, because you brought up that normally it's an administrative matter in many cities, if there's a problem with how we're functioning, then I would just tell you, please bring that to us. Because what we don't want is to say the policy is A, and then have you feeling like, yeah, but we have to violate the policy in order to get business done. I think you need to tell us that, and we need to fix that for you, okay?
Thank you. And this is a good example of that. I would recommend that you may want to consider fixing it, because these kind of changes, if we wait, this will be $400,000 change.
So please take that with
Those
Parks.
decisions needs to be made with the competent engineers out there. We trust them to do the work, and this needs to be approved timely. And I think that the way that the process, you can still monitor it, you can still have a discussion, but give the administration the authority to approve these change orders.
Yeah, so I think going into a little bit more exactly how those contingencies, what the authorization is, when you have to come to us, I think it sounds like taking that with Parks and Public Works would be wise. It maybe we've got you hemmed in a little, and you need to kind of take us through that so we can fix that.
Thank you, Councilman.
Let's add that to the agenda for next week.
Thank you, sir.
All right, so if there's no further discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. I'm going to try and provide some mercy. I should have done this earlier for one of our guests here tonight and move back to the agenda bill, or just jump to F&A for a moment before we move on to the next one that probably promises to be lengthy. On the consent agenda, it was Agenda Bill 19099 was moved to the F&A committee, so I'll take that up now. Executive
Point
recruitment.
of order, Mayor? I need to recuse myself for this, which is
Okay.
why I pulled it off. I can't vote on this, so I'll be in the hallway until you're done with this matter.
Okay.
This could take hours.
We'll try to remember to bring you back in, Jim.
All right, so we'll bring forward Agenda Bill 19099, Executive Recruitment Services Consulting Agreement with the Prothman Company for the recruitment of the Director of Information Technology and Director of Parks and Public Works.
The administration recommends approval to use an executive recruitment services consultant that will provide recruitment services for 2 vacant director positions. Selected consulting firm will provide assistance with position profile development, recruitment, advertising, candidate screening, and final interview process. Move to approve an executive recruitment services consulting agreement form to be approved by city attorney with Prothman Company for the recruitment of the Director of Information Technology and Director of Parks and Public Works. May I have a second?
Second.
A motion and a second to approve Agenda Bill 19099 as stated by Councilmember Holloway. Is there any member of the public that would like to comment on this item prior to possible action? Seeing no one move forward, council, any discussion or questions? All right, seeing no further discussions or questions, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried.
No.
All right. So I think it's clear why Councilmember Mayhew took it off the consent agenda. He just wanted to recuse himself during that because he has an investment in some recruiting companies, or one of the ones that was being considered, so. Yeah, and although we didn't think it was conflict
on
because it's not the one in question, it's his call, so he's using an excess of caution. Thank you. Thank you, Greg.
Who's that? Actually, he recused himself because he wasn't going for the job.
All right, so while we're on the F&A, just to knock that one off, is there any other report for F&A?
No other report.
All right, so back to Parks and Public Works Committee on the remaining Agenda Bill 19098, Resolution 1508, authorizing refinement of project scope, funding, partners, project delivery methodology, and schedule for expansion of the Snoqualmie Community Center to add a swimming pool, exercise, recreation, and other multi-purpose facilities, and providing for other matters related thereto.
The agenda bill will adopt a resolution that authorizes and requests the mayor and administration to further refine the proposed Snoqualmie Community Center expansion project and present to the city council recommendations for action on project scope, funding, project partners, project delivery methodology, and schedule. Move to adopt resolution 1508, authorizing refinement of project scope, funding, partners, project delivery methodology, and schedule for expansion of the Snoqualmie Community Center to add a swimming pool, exercise, recreation, and other multi-purpose facilities, and providing for other matters relating thereto, and authorize the mayor to sign.
Second?
I have a motion and a second to approve Agenda Bill 19098 as stated by Councilmember Sunwall. Is there any member of the public that would like to comment to this item prior to possible future action or council action? All right, seeing no one raise their hand. Council, any questions or discussion? Councilmember Jeans.
There have been more than one occasion where the mayor and the administration have suggested to us which direction they're going to go, pretty much what the expansion will look like. And I'm wondering whether what you will bring back to us is consistent with those discussions that you have shared at various meetings.
I think, yeah, in general, Bob, the ones that the Wyatt initially prepared were very conceptual. In fact, when you saw 3 and 6 lane options, you noticed that the dry space doesn't change in those options, so they're very crude. And what I mean by that is if you really saw a true 3 lane option or 6 lane option, you'd see a much smaller dry space configuration and then a much larger dry space on the 3 lane configuration. So the Y is going back and already has been working with an architect to sort of refine some concepts to bring back for the council's consideration. And actually, I would hope we'd have more public interaction too, like town hall meetings to gather more public input to refine those details. Or Bob, before I throw it back to you, the only other nuance that makes it uncertain, as you know, is we're exploring partnerships with potential partners like the school district with a contribution from $2 to $4 million with their interest of putting some more that competitive aquatics piece in there. So that could be a big factor in how that space modifies or changes from my initial proposal. We now know as of last Tuesday that although it hasn't been certified, since it's running at 70% approval right now, the King County Parks Levy has now been approved. Not only will we be getting additional revenues north of $160,000 a year, but I've had extensive conversations with Kathy Lambert, and she's going to very much support our pursuing part of that $44 million that they have there. So that's a source of funding that could, again, alter what we could accomplish or put into that facility in addition to whatever other avenues.
So I'm thinking, especially from what you've said, that you might be presenting something that says 3 lanes, which is what we will do by ourselves, or in the alternative, the 6 lanes with the dry space, in the case we reach agreement with the school district on the expanded needs.
Correct. And as an example, there's clearly been a lot of sentiment expressed out there of a desire for, at a minimum, a 6-lane pool with competitive. Now, in my view, that doesn't mean that need necessarily has to be met in our facility. We could do with the kind of the Goldilocks formula that the Y likes with a 3-lane pool and more recreation. I would want to meet that need or desire in the community by continuing to engage SciView in those conversations to see if maybe they're the ones that delivers more of that competitive component to the community or for the high school athletic programs, and maybe could do more in that regard. And again, those are all the fluid pieces that I think need to be vigorously explored.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Councilmember Lassay?
I got a couple of 3 or 4 or 5 points. I'll just speak in run-on sentences and fill the time as best I can here. I just wanted to let my fellow council members, now that I'm referring.
So like a normal comment then?
Like a normal comment then.
Yeah, okay, perfect.
I want to remind my fellow council members that we are discussing the expansion of a community center. Let's try to refrain from talking about aspects of that community center other than the expansion, because in essence, this resolution is asking the administration to define it. So let's just keep it general. Let's keep that. I just request that. I'd like to thank the administration for agreeing to the amendments to the agenda bill that were requested during the Parks and Public Works committee meeting. They didn't have to be considered, and I appreciate that was the case, because I think it makes it a very solid resolution for this council. The intent of this resolution is really to find out the what. And I think that's really what everybody's looking for. There's lots of talk in the community, whether you're in social media or in public forums or in just discussions with your neighbors, of what the what is. And no one's really sure what we're doing yet. And I think this is important for us to validate for those citizens that the administration is going to come back with a plan and council is going to be responsible in providing the oversight to ensure that we are spending our citizens' money wisely should this go forward. So ultimately, my comment and the thing I want to express was that this plan, really has to be determined if it's in the best interest of our citizens. We had conversations earlier about the cost and the expenditure and where the funds are coming from, and I appreciate those things, and that gives us a starting point for having those conversations. I still believe that the only way to be truly sure of whether this is something that the public wants is a vote of the citizens. Without a vote of the citizens, I think we're just falling short of that standard at which we should be, being that this is a facility that had previous votes, that went that route, that ultimately was built without a vote of the public, without any vote at all. I think we're doing a disservice to the process, and I really encourage the administration to research what it would take, along with all the partners, to look at what a vote would be, the impact of doing a vote would be. We can make the decision whether we do or do not, but at least we would know what the results of that research is. Was that good? Was that short?
That was way shorter than I expected.
Okay. I'm off my soapbox. Thank you.
Pizza I ordered is not even here yet.
All right. Any other discussion or questions, council? All right, if there's no further discussion, all those in favor?
Here.
Oh, I'm sorry. Councilmember Shepherd.
So to piggyback on to Councilmember Lefebvre's comment, it would be nice if we could do some sort of a vote of our residents and give them option A and option B for them to vote on as far as having a pool built in our community, whether they, what it would cost to work with Skyview and bring a pool that is going to meet all our needs for our high school swim team and versus what we're considering at the YMCA. I would really like to go that route over going, the alternate route of making lots of plans without the community being able to have a say.
All right, any other questions or discussion, council? All right, with that, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
All right, motion passes 6-1. All right, thank you, council. With that, we'll move on to, tell me if there's anything I missed on consent agenda or anywhere else. I think we're all wrapped up here. Any other reports for Parks and Public Works Committee?
No, that should do it.
Okay,
It's the entire meeting.
thank you. Thank you for being brief. Community Development Committee report.
No report.
Public Safety Committee report.
Another council committee.
So tonight, we're going to have a discussion on fireworks.
That should be explosive.
There you go.
Sorry, dad joke, my bad.
So
was a dud.
at the,
Something I can do.
There has to be something we can object somehow.
Somehow we can object to bad humor. All right.
okay, we
my
did
turn.
agree to add this to the council agenda. So at the last council meeting, we agreed to add the fireworks discussion to our agenda tonight. Councilmember Shepherd is wanting to ban all fireworks in Snoqualmie, and we've had lengthy discussions at our Public Safety Committee meetings a couple times. And as you know, aerials are already banned in Snoqualmie, and so the items that are legal in Snoqualmie are like the little novelties, the handheld sparklers, the little smoke devices. And fireworks can only be discharged on July 4th and New Year's Eve. So on July 4th, our police and fire departments reported there were no major incidents. The departments were well prepared. There were a few warnings issued, and they confiscated some fireworks. They attributed this to police increased the number on duty, so they were more visible. The firework department participated in all events in all the events that day, and they also patrolled neighborhoods late that afternoon and in the evening. And our communications group pushed out messages about fireworks that are prohibited through the signs, reverse 911 calls, the email newsletter, and press releases. Chief Curry also sent out a memo to council members regarding the history of fireworks and recommendations regarding fireworks. The Snoqualmie Fire Department has identified areas of wildland fire risk around the city, which we call the WUI area, which is the wildland urban interface area. There is a risk outside the city due to unincorporated, and also our UGA area allows aerials. So it is easy for them to buy fireworks. You can go to the Snoqualmie tribe and buy fireworks that are illegal in Snoqualmie, and actually some that are illegal in the state. So the issue is that you have people in unincorporated King County that can shoot off the fireworks, but within the city, we can't, and we're finding that we do not have a high number of occurrences. So I think this year, we had like one issue. So people can buy illegal fireworks, and so one idea was to work with the Snoqualmie tribe and see if, since they sell the fireworks, perhaps people can stay there and shoot them off. The other thing was to create a more extensive media campaign, such as Bellevue does Respect the Ban type campaign every year. And there's actually an app that you can download on your phone, and if you see illegal fireworks, you can report it through your app. If it's necessary if it's very, very dry conditions, the concern is perhaps there could be, obviously it could cause fires. And so if there's extremely dry conditions, then the city could declare a state of emergency and ban the fireworks for that particular year. Otherwise, if you ban fireworks, it'll take 365 days to enact. And again, what we'd be banning would be the little sparklers and the handheld novelties and smoke devices. So I'm not sure that's going to solve the problem that maybe Councilmember Shepherd is looking to solve. Is there any discussion regarding fireworks?
Chief, did you want to add anything to that, or she pretty much summed it up?
She did a great job summing it up. It's not only the Snoqualmie Indian tribe that sells the fireworks that are illegal. That's the only thing I want to make sure I clarify. If they buy them from the stand in North Bend and then bring those aerials back into the community, those would be considered illegal in the eyes of the city municipal code. There's also other tribes in the region that sell fireworks that are not only illegal in the city, but also illegal in the state. And that's why some of those tribes, the Tlalips, the Muckleshoot tribes, they offer space to light off those fireworks on the reservation, which they don't do with the Snoqualmie Indian tribe, which is interesting. So they're knowingly selling a product where people are going to have to break the law when they leave the tribal grounds. So I know that's a complex issue to try to address, but it is one way to try to fix some of the challenges we have in the city. Regardless of the level of ban, whether it was a total ban or what we have right now, in conversation with the police chief, we believe that we would be dealing with the same types of issues. The people that are unaware of what the city code is, or they bought them at the Snoqualmie casino or in North Bend and brought them back, and they're new to the community and they weren't aware of it. And when we tell them to stop doing that, my experience has been that we actually have good results with that they actually stop that behavior. So doing a full ban we'd still have these instances of pockets of fireworks still going off that we'd have to go address.
Councilmember Summerall and Councilmember Jeans.
The question I have, because I actually floated this idea, just wanting you guys to look at is, the biggest concern I have, and I don't know if Councilmember Shepherd, I assume she'll want to talk here in a second, is I just want to make sure that we don't have, I think coming off of what happened in California last year, I think we look at a community like ours that is seemingly, it's all green and wet and couldn't possibly think of doing that. I realize we're a different climate than California. I just want to make sure that you, as the fire chief, you are the executive director of all things related to fire for our city, that you're comfortable from a let's not set the town on fire perspective, that our current laws are adequate.
I am much more comfortable today than I was when the first year that I came here in 2014 and was here when we had the devastating fire on the Ridge. Like Councilman Barras already explained, these safe and sane fireworks that we allow in the community are very low risk. It allows people to celebrate in their neighborhoods, then go to a community event where we have the large fireworks display, and then go back to their neighborhoods. It's the best situation that the fire department can ask for.
Thank you.
Councilmember Jeans.
So after the devastating fire of 2014 that occurred on the Ridge, We conducted, among other things, there was a tremendous amount of public interest in vocally banning fireworks. And we conducted a survey, and I forget exactly how we worded it, but we tried to be impartial in the way we worded it. But we said fireworks or no fireworks. And it was pretty much equally divided, pretty much 50-50 among the citizens of Snoqualmie relative to banning fireworks. So I don't think we should be governed by public opinion on a matter that is for public safety, but it is a matter to factor in. And subsequent to that, we did this legislation that brought us to where we are today. And part of the people who have a real craving for boom are pretty much satisfied over the years since then with the red, white, and boom fireworks display essentially put on by Church on the Ridge. So I think we have gone a long way towards alleviating a problem and addressing it, and I'm comfortable with where we are.
Councilmember Shepherd.
Here? Okay. So the proposal was not to ban all fireworks. The proposal is to ban retail fireworks. And so, you know, it would not ban red, white, and boom. That would stay in place. But looking at other King County cities, it's many cities in King County are banning fireworks altogether. And I think that, you know, while all these other issues as far as having access to illegal fireworks still exist outside our city boundaries, I think that, you know, and I know that our police cannot be everywhere at every moment. And so as far as enforcement, I think that we depend on our residents to have the, you know, to follow what our laws are. And I think that if we do outlaw fireworks on all levels as far as retail, I think it would go a long way in making it safer here. So I am for banning all the retail fireworks in the city, and I've heard from so many people who feel similarly. I know other cities have done a vote to find out how people really feel about banning the fireworks, and I'd like to see us put this on a ballot for people to be able to vote on it.
Councilmember Holloway.
So I do want to represent some of the conversation that did go on in 2014. If you look, I see more true retail into this market than we did in the past. But if you do look at the permits and the stands that we have allowed to sell fireworks in the cities, I think you will find those are charitable organizations. So like it or not, there is some benefit to these fireworks. The Kiwanis was a tuition grant at one stage. I'm not sure if they still do it. I haven't kept track, but there is benefits to the sale of fireworks by these charitable organizations. And tell you the truth, if you were to ban them, I believe a lot of the things we do allow are probably below the radar of what the police department and fire department would see. These are pretty benign fireworks we do allow. And you will still get the ones we don't allow, is the real issue. But you can't legislate outside your jurisdiction.
I can contest that the difference between in Councilmember Holloway's alleyway during 4th of July prior to the change was considered a profound difference in safety and amount of shells being blown off. Yeah. Councilor Mayhew, did you have your hand up?
I did not. I know it's a surprise, right?
Councilman Lissay, that's right. You.
Well, as someone who has it was memorable, but measurable hearing loss in my right ear because of a firework explosion in 2012. An illegal bottle rocket was launched next to me when I was doing some other fireworks in Councilmember Holloway's. No, it wasn't his place. It was in front of my house. But anyway, the point being that I was against banning fireworks when it first came about. I thought there'd be loss of community. It was a big effort. Our neighbors all got together. We put our tables and chairs outside and have potlucks, and we'd walk around, and then we'd just start, bombing the neighborhood. And I hate to say it that way, but that's what we did. I think we were one of the worst offenders. I'm pretty sure of it, because we had a park in the middle of our neighborhood, and everybody just shot them right in the middle of the park. Since then, we don't have that anymore. We don't have the neighbors getting together on the 4th of July. But what we do is we have friends getting together still, and then we go to the fireworks display at Community Park. So I think what we've traded for is a much safer environment. I will not get my hearing loss back, but the hair has started to grow back on my hands after about 4 years. So
Now, how did you make that happen? I just need some.
burning, yeah, just, when you can smell, I can still smell the fireworks smell at any point of time because I've been around them for so long. I'm rambling, but I think it is worth looking at least the idea of whether we go all the way. And no longer have fireworks stands. I'd be interested in knowing what the revenue the city brings in with those fireworks stands, and if there is none, what is the public benefit? Are all the stands charitable organizations? Because it certainly seemed like one of them this year was not, was just simply a retail establishment. Or if they have one, it would be good to have that, or have that as a criteria. So I'm just throwing some ideas out there. I think it's a good conversation to have. Let's make sure we're always on the side of right when it comes to fireworks.
They were both charitable organizations.
Were they? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good to know.
I would just quickly add to what Councilmember Lissay happened. I was in the same fireworks awesome. That's what makes this community awesome camp. Our alleyway was a little insane too. It's far more sane now. But I just wanted to add what Councilmember Jean said about the survey that was done. Most surveys have that strongly agree, strongly disagree, and somewhat. There weren't a whole lot of somewhats on that. It was either people passionately for or God-given right against, or both, God-given American right to blow off fireworks or against. So it was really, I thought, a concerted effort by the council to find a good compromise or middle path that most communities hadn't done. And to your point, Councilman, say it was replacing the, family getting together in neighborhoods where now the whole community gets together and celebrates it. So I think it's been, I was just impressed the first year we did it, how quickly people shifted and embraced that. You still have those get together with the kids. It's more celebrating the kids doing the ground stuff now, but I'm really pleased with the change that's been done.
So if I can add, I will forever live with ringing in my right ear.
Yeah.
And I can contribute
So you
that
celebrate
directly
4th
to
of
it.
July every day.
I can help you with the
I
left
can hear
side
it
if you'd
all
like.
the time. I have other things coming in my left ear here. I got
Just along with what the mayor was just saying, that at the time we had this conversation, the council and administration took up the conversation about a full ban. And we discussed it, and realizing the results from the community and how they felt about it, there was a sentiment that, well, if we still allow the safer and sane ones to go off in the community or in the neighborhoods, that would be a better option. And that's why, when you look at, like Councilmember Shepherd was just saying, that there are cities that have taken this up and have banned them totally. I don't think they ever looked at that option. It was either one or the other.
Right.
And this was kind of in the middle, and it seemed like a good compromise, so people could still go out with their families and light these off in a safe way, but then go enjoy the
Or
fireworks
Chief,
show.
there's an analogy to that, and there's even roads, if a road is set a speed limit is set unreasonably, and everybody drives, say they set a speed limit at 30 and everybody's driving 40, 45, you can usually go to a court and say, you should throw this out because this speed limit has not been set reasonably, and there's actually, I think, a mechanism in the law. To that point, I think, the concern we had is if you do an alt-right ban, you sort of invite people to then violate it because they just don't feel it's very fair. And once that kind of is open, then they're going to do aerials and everything. So at least this gives them the option to do that, 40 miles an hour, but do it with the safer stuff, and gives it legal permission to stay within that threshold, that safer stuff, and not have to go beyond. Councilmember Summel?
We actually did have, there's still a fair amount of community that went on my street and the street below ours. And, it's little kids, because I happen to live in a couple streets where my kids are very, very much older than the rest of the kids. But the moment that our two safety officers tell me that it's not okay, that's when I voted for a ban, and not before that. So when you tell me that as fire chief, you are comfortable with where we're at, and the police chief is comfortable with where we're at, that's good enough for me. So when that changes, let us know.
All right, if there's no further discussion, again, that was just a discussion item only.
Thank you, Chief.
With that, we'll move on. I don't think there was any items for committee of the whole other than perhaps that discussion item. Anything else for public safety, Councilmember Ross?
No, thank you.
All right. The staff meetings
Hold
are
on.
written at the beginning
There
of
is
the month?
one.
There is one
Committee of the
item
whole.
for committee of the whole.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't catch it on my notes. Remind me, what item is that?
Council rules of procedure, council committee alternatives.
All right, Councilor, or Mayor Pro Tem, I'll kick that over to you.
All right. So the past 2 years, as we have set up committee assignments, your Mayor Pro Tem invented something called alternate committee members. Question has come up of actually what was the intent of the alternate committee members. Two views is when there is a committee member unavailable for a meeting, that you can look at the alternate committee member to step in. The other one would be that if you are running to the issue of not being able to have a meeting because of no committee members, the alternate committee member can step in at that stage. I will tell you my intent. My intent was that if any committee member is unable to make their committee, the alternate committee member is the one to look at first for filling that position, unless there is a conflict of position or, well, unless there's a conflict of position in regards to that. That being, I will advise you that for F&A, Councilmember Shepherd is the alternate committee member. Oh, no, I'm sorry, she's not. But there have been times where she was in the audience as a council member, and I only had 2 members of F&A, but I did not seat her because a lot of her questions are in regards to warrants, and I felt it a bit hard to work to have her ask the question and participate in answering the question at the same time. Okay? So I will advise you again, my intent was alternate committee members were basically first alternate, our first member to look at to fulfill a position, given that a committee member may not be present. At that stage, I will open it to discussion, and really this is your decision of what you want to do with those alternate committee assignments, or if you would like to get rid of them.
Or Mayor Pro Tem, to clarify, I thought your intent was to assure a quorum.
The intent was to have at least 3 committee members at each committee,
Or,
sitting committee members.
That's different.
Now, we've had committees with 1 committee member knowing that anything that comes out of committee comes to council. Okay, so worst case, you can proceed on 1. We ought to try for 3.
actually, I'm going to toss that to Jody real quick. I mean, is that true? I believe we need a minimum of 2 for a quorum to proceed.
Well,
So that's why I asked the question about
I'll
quorum.
advise you, in the past, I've done that.
So
With administration present.
It was my understanding that your intent was to have an alternate so that you could assure a quorum so a committee meeting could continue without being canceled and business could get done.
My intent was, if there was a committee member who was absent, was to backfill that position with the alternate.
Councilmember Sunwell.
So your intent was to have 3,
3.
not just 2. Okay, and I guess my response to that would be, great. But I think it should be left up to the committee chairs to determine whether they're fine moving forward with 2, or if they feel like they need to seat the alternate 3.
Councilmember Mayo.
So I, actually, 2 things. First off, I'm completely confused by that because it sounds like you had one intention, but sometimes you do one thing and sometimes you do another thing, and as a committee chair, you kind of decide on the fly. I actually didn't fully understand that or what the sort of guiding principle would be there, but the more important concept that I would bring up is I would ask what it is we're trying to do with our committees. What I have taken great comfort in is the idea that the 3 council members that are on each committee are going in depth on the issues that committee deals with, and that they're getting a very in-depth understanding, a greater understanding than I have of the things going on in that area, and are able to guide things so that they come to the council in a way that is timely, that is designed to assist the council in effectively getting through its decision-making, help us understand what we're kind of dealing with. And so it seems to me that the committees ought to have continuity of those three members, and that if we're sort of subbing in other council members, it seems very hard for us to do that. And then, as I think about the committee I chair, and working with the staff spends a lot of time interacting with the committee, trying to get guidance as to where their priorities should be. What are the things that we understand or that we tell them we believe are most important to the committee? What should go in front of other things? What the priorities are? And that they use this as kind of sounding board to try and help set priorities. And so I guess my observation is I have seen the staff get confused when there are other council members that come on to sit on the committee because they give conflicting guidance, and then I've seen them get confused. In fact, they present back in a very confused way. They'll say things like, well, a majority of the council or of the committee seemed to want this, but then we had a minority view of that, and so we're not really sure. And so it seems like if the goal is to streamline how we're working with staff, it seems like continuity of council members is very important. And so it seems to me having three members, and then I think the notion of a quorum comes from Robert's Rules of Order, which I believe we follow as a city, would require us to have two. I don't believe that a committee of one actually is a committee or can meet or can function because of Robert's Rules of Order. And so my thought was having a situation where we're actually precluded from moving something forward is something we don't want. So I thought that the idea of an alternate was just to prevent that from happening, but not to sort of throw another council member in into the process. So that was my thought, and frankly, that all made sense, and it's what I think we ought to be doing.
Councilmember Holloway.
So,
And then Councilmember Jean.
the discussion tonight in no way changes the responsibilities of the committees, okay? But to assume that a council member can't, who has been attending meetings off and on, has gone to the councils, can't occasionally sit in on those discussions and help that discussion, help flesh it out, I don't understand that, okay? But what the question really to you tonight is, in regards to the alternate committee position, get rid of it, use it to maintain three committee members, or use it to maintain quorum only. So it's a multiple choice question and has no relevance to the responsibilities of the committee.
Councilmember Jean, and then Councilmember Lissay.
During this last year, we have done some refining at the committee level. We refined there's consistency in the way an agenda is put together. There's consistency in whether we allow public comment. There's consistency in who can attend the committee meetings. And those were all refinements that that made committee meetings run more smoothly because everybody is playing by the same rules, whether they're on this committee and that committee. We cannot, as 7 members being on 3 or 4 committees, we cannot be on more than maybe one committee. But some of us are on 2 committees, and in order to develop other council members to come along, I think that was one of the reasons to create the alternate. I believe it is perfectly possible and reasonable that we will know at some point short of the day of the committee meeting, when there will be an absent, and there would be adequate opportunity in most all cases to give notice to the alternate to prepare for the committee so that that person can be as prepared as the other members. And actually, if they can't even be there, I mean, it's just an opportunity to get further input from a council member who, knowing that he or she is a voting member of that committee, will give, I think, more refined thinking into comments and how they will vote relative to that. So I would hope that we would make this matter uniform, that we would have alternates, and that those alternates would be called automatically whenever the council committee chair finds that there will be an absence for the committee.
Councilman Lassie?
I've not had any really position on whether or not an alternate should be seated or not. I just go from what my understanding was. My understanding was it was at the discretion of the chair, or in the case of a need for a quorum. All I'm going to add to this is really that we need to define it. So if Mayor Pro Tem is looking for a decision, I think we need to circle that around and see how that goes, and we need to incorporate that into our rules, to the council rules. So let's just figure it out.
So just a clarification, Mayor Pro Tem, you don't disagree with the notion that right now it's, because it's not embodied in the rules and procedures.
Ambiguous, yes.
Yeah, it's really up to the chairs to kind of interpret as they wish. So
Well,
you don't take offense to that, correct?
Ultimately, I don't want to subvert the powers of the chair. Even if an alternate is identified, but it would be inappropriate to seat that person, either to subject matters or conflict of interest or whatever, chair has full right to do that.
Councilor Ross?
So in the past, I sat on the previous Public Safety Committee, and there would be meetings where and it's not the current, so it's not Councilmember Jeans or Councilmember Shepherd, where council members just wouldn't show up. And so the rest of the chiefs and I would sit there for probably 15 minutes waiting for other council members to show up. And finally, we would have to cancel it because that was the only one there. So I think, first of all, proper notice of if a council member cannot attend, that they tell the chair. And then from that, the chair should be able to decide if two people are not going to be there, then to ask for the alternate. Otherwise, if the other person's going to be there, it's up to the chair to decide if they need the alternate and invite that person.
I second that.
Right. Or if the alternate's not available, then maybe to invite another council member.
Since it wasn't in the form of the motion, the second dies for lack of a motion.
That's a new one.
So it's important to have the quorum, is what I'm saying. So,
Yeah.
And to know in advance whether someone's going to attend or not.
So I guess if you're taking a tally, my
And
position
2 and 2 right now.
would be essentially the alternate would participate if you're in need of a quorum.
That's where I am too.
So I agree with Councilmember Ross's proposal.
So we can have further, so I've got now 5 that say it's active,
Required to seat only
required
if
to
it's to maintain a
seat to
quorum.
maintain a
Required
quorum.
only if it's,
Okay?
but the
So
chair
I
can
w-
choose.
I will, is there other things I want to do to the council rules and procedures? So I will incorporate this into the next change and bring it back to you guys for a vote.
Perfect.
I do want to make, I guess, one caveat on comment before. Jody, correct me where I go wrong. In conditions where there is not a quorum, staff can brief the present chairperson or council member on the agenda bill, and it should move to council as is, non-consent. From there, the council can make a decision without it officially being in the committee in cases of non-quorum. That's what we did in the past, but
But I don't,
And no minutes are taken because there is not a quorum to have a meeting.
So administration can move agenda bills, if the committee is unable to meet, the administration can move agenda bills forward to council.
Councilman Hussein and Councilman Summel.
Yeah, I'm not, I think that might take a little more conversation, because I don't think you can have a meeting if you don't have a quorum. So how could you have a meeting to move it to council? Or how can you move to council if you didn't have the meeting?
I like it. He just said he gives full authority to the administration to advance.
Yes, yeah, I think he didn't, I don't think he realized what he said.
You know, in essence, that is what's happening, but they can still brief a council member on what the agenda bills is to appropriately help bracket the discussion in council.
That might take a.
Councilman Summel.
Yeah,
Check.
I'm not, that strikes me as not right, but I could be convinced otherwise, perhaps. It's not going to be tonight. Basically what Councilmember Lissay, listen, because I'm not going to agree with you for a second here, is
He's got to work his way to it, though.
if you can't, if one person a meeting does not make, what you're essentially saying is something can be advanced to council without a meeting. And I'm not, I don't know that sits, I don't know if I can digest that tonight. That seems off.
Okay, I will not put that into the.
I mean, I know how you rogue people worked before the rest of us were on council, but I don't think that's going to fly anymore. We're a big city now.
Historically, whatever, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it's happened.
Councilman Mayhew.
Yeah, so I am really troubled by that idea as well. The thought that goes through my mind is that I think there's a lot of value from our committee processes, and I would hate to see us moving around them. Having said that, the one thing that worries me is if there's great urgency. And so it seems to me that maybe a solution to that might be that F&A committee. If there was a committee, one of the other committees that was unable to meet, yet administration had something that was urgent, that they could bring that to F&A committee instead.
Okay.
Thank you, Councilmember. That's what we were going to mention, because that's what's typically happened in the past, Brian. If it's been an urgent item, and that's what you might not recall, is we'll take it to a different committee or the F&A. The F&A is kind of the clearinghouse committee.
Well, and I think what that's happened in the past is you've gone to the committee chair to say, hey, are you okay with us just taking it to the F&A?
Right, yep.
And I think that is, because then you still have a body of your peers. I mean, they won't know anything we're talking about, but at least they'll be able to, I mean, not exactly the three I'd pick, but.
Where's your chart?
I'm on your side on that.
Oh, man.
Okay, are we ready to move on?
Killed that one.
Executive session.
I'm good
All
with
right.
that. I've got direction.
As I noted before, the staff meetings are written the first of the month. However, at this time, any other questions from the staff? Questions or discussion? I don't see any movement, so with that, at this time, we'll go into executive session regarding potential litigation pursuant to RCW 42.30.110, Section 1II, and ask that Bob Sturbank and Deborah Vigil remain behind. The executive session is anticipated to last approximately 15 minutes, and there may be action following. Also have an executive session regarding potential litigation pursuant to RCW 42.30.110, Section 1II, and ask that Bob Sturbank and Deborah Vigil remain behind. The executive session is anticipated to last approximately 15 minutes, and there may be action following. Everyone else gets to go home and enjoy the rest of the evening.
Now.
Mayor, point of order.